On March 1st, 2024, the world lost the beloved manga icon Akira Toriyama. However, the announcement of his passing wouldn't be released to the public for about another week, probably to give respect for his family, giving them time to mourn. When the news finally did break, what came in the days and weeks to follow was surreal. Millions around the world came together to pay their tribute to the legendary author. Athletes, celebrities, and even world leaders. Thousands in Latin America, specifically in the nations of Argentina, Chile, and Mexico, gathered in organized public events to raise their arms to the sky, simulating the charging of the Genki Dama. It goes to show the immense impact this man made upon the lives of countless people around the globe. And on October 11th, DragonBall Daima, possibly the last project he had a hand in, will release to the world. So in honor of Dragon Ball's Big 4-0, for the next few weeks on this channel, we'll be taking a look at the 4 Dragon Ball films that cover the adventures of Kid Goku. Those movies consist of The Legend of Shen-Long, Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle, Mystical Adventure, and the 10th anniversary film, Path to Ultimate Strength. And yes, while Toriyama wasn't the writer for these movies, they're built upon what he had previously written. Especially given that all 4 of these movies are effectively just altered retellings of the story arcs from his manga. Plus, something to note, Toriyama did contribute character redesigns for the Red Ribbon Army characters in Path to Ultimate Strength. So without further ado, let's jump into the first Dragon Ball theatrical film, The Legend of Shen-Long. Originally released on December 20th, 1986 at the Toei Cartoon Festival, it was originally titled Dragon Ball the Movie, and it had a running time of 51 minutes. That's because this film was part of a triple feature at the festival that comprised of itself and films for the anime series Geek no Kitaro and the film adaptation for Kinnikuman. And as I stated earlier, Toriyama wasn't the writer for this movie. Instead, it's Toshigi Inoue. Yep, the man who just a few short years later would be head writer on a little series called Chojin Sentai Jetman, the entry of the franchise that would save Super Sentai from cancellation. Here in 1986, he's an on-staff writer for Toei, and he was tasked with writing The Legend of Shen-Long. So the movie functions as a retelling of Dragon Ball's first story arc, with many aspects changed, so as to fit within a 51-minute runtime. Also, the characters Pilaf, Shu, and Mai are replaced by movie-only villains, King Garumez, Bongo, and Pasta, and in typical Toriyama fashion, their names serve as puns for food. And to be honest, the absence of Pilaf and his crew is definitely felt in this movie. More on that later. Straight away the film opens up with narration and a sequence about the legends surrounding the 7 Dragon Balls. Whoever manages to gather them together can summon the eternal dragon deity known as Shen-Long and have their greatest desire granted. So first off, when your movie is less than an hour long and you're adapting story elements from the first arc of the series, it's important to hit the ground running. In the manga and anime, we, like Goku, learn of the Dragon Balls from Bulma. However, here, we're being given the rundown from the very start. This is so right away we can establish the major players in the story and the MacGuffin everyone is after. And unlike in the original manga and anime where the first character we're introduced to is Goku, here the first character we're introduced is a character named Pansy, who bears a striking resemblance to Snow from the original manga and anime. I say striking resemblance, but let's be real, they just used that character model for this movie. Pansy is one of the residents of Garumez's kingdom, who's suffering at the tyrant's constant excavations for a jewel known as the Rich Stones. Once Garumez discovered that the soil contained these stones, he began mining them without a care for this effect it would have on the environment or the livelihood of his subjects, even going so far as to tear down people's homes if it meant a bigger haul. Pansy, who's incredibly empathetic, has grown tired of all of it and attempts to put a stop to a recent excavation project by shooting at the digging crews with her toy slingshot. Naturally, doing this earns her the ire of a soldier tasked with guarding the excavation crew, but before he can lay any harm to her, her father intervenes, which gets the attention of Major Bongo, who cheap shots her dad before heading off with Pasta to meet with Garumez.
I don't know what the hell you feeding him, but he is too damn big!
The king is in his dining hall, dissatisfied with yet another meal prepared for him. Since coming into contact with the Rich Stones, money has become no obstacle for him. He can afford the finest foods money can buy, anytime, any day. Something to note also is that his appearance has apparently greatly changed, having become less and less human, and he can no longer satisfy his palate as nothing tastes satisfactory to him anymore. He's become so desperate, in fact, that he's commissioned Bongo and Pasta to locate the mythical Dragon Balls so he can wish for the tastiest food magic can conjure up. And it's at this point that we finally cut to Mount Paozu, where we finally meet Son Goku, who, like in the original source material, is in possession of his grandfather's 4-star Dragon Ball. We get a revamp of the iconic meeting between Bulma and Goku with minor changes. Goku sees Bulma's Dragon Ball on the crash and thinks it's his before Bulma explains to him that hers has to be different from his, since she knows the legend of the 7 balls. Once Bulma realizes that the ball she's hunting is in Goku's possession, the two quickly set off to return to his home, as she isn't the only one who's searching for them. And her fears are definitely founded, because Bongo and Pasta got to Goku's home first and snatched his grandpa's Dragon Ball. But at least they leave the owner some compensation in return. However, Son Goku has never had, nor ever will have, any desire for money. So Bulma whips out a capsule containing an aircraft, and the two take off and quickly close the distance between them and the thieves. Pasta's response to these kids wanting their ball back is to just outright shoot them. However, what I don't think she or Bongo counted on was just how much Bulma wants that hot boyfriend from Shen-Long. Because this girl, she shoots back. So with playtime now having officially ended, Pasta decides it's time to bust out the heat-seeking rocket. With the craft now having been destroyed, the two kids are in total freefall to the earth below. Though Goku does manage to save Bulma with some quick thinking in his Inoue. However, he is forced to partake in one of Toshiki Inoue's favorite writing tropes. That evening, Goku and Bulma are traversing the forest in another one of her capsule vehicles, where they come across Pansy, who's being chased by an ogre. That ogre, of course, being Oolong, who wants Pansy to marry him. In the original story, Oolong was tormenting a village by intimidating them with his shape-shifting powers to give up their daughters for him to marry. He's out here chasing Pansy in the woods. At night. And alone. Congrats, Inoue, you successfully made this whole sequence from the manga even more creepy, because at least that had a comedic ending. Goku instantly steps out to defend Pansy, and Oolong, being the coward that he is, attempts to bluff out the monkey boy. Which, if you know anything about Son Goku, that plan is already destined for failure. When that doesn't succeed, Oolong proceeds to GTFO, but what he doesn't expect is for this kid to chase after him, and give him a mouthful of Nioibo for his trouble. Once his transformation time has run out and his true form is revealed, neither of them really have any time to really think about what comes next, because right then and there, they're shot at by the forest bandit, Yamcha. Joined by his sidekick Puar, the two demand that Goku and Oolong fork over any money and hoi poi capsules they have in their possession if they want to keep their lives. Oolong remembers how freakishly strong Goku is and pits the two against one another, resulting in a pretty cool fight scene. Which I can't show, because if I do, I would have to use my wish on the Dragon Balls to erase any strike from Toei or Shueisha off my channel. In the midst of their smackdown brawl, Goku's fatigue and hunger overtake him, which gives Yamcha an opportunity to use his finisher, the Rafufu Ken, known as the Wolf Fang Fist in the dub. And while that might work on most, it doesn't work on Goku, and now, fully pissed off, he decides to unleash his own signature finisher, the Janken technique. First comes rock, followed by scissors, then finally a paper palm strike to the face, knocking Yamcha back a ways and recreating that iconic scene from the manga and anime. He gets up still roaring to go until Bulma pulls up on both of them, and at this point, the bandit's kryptonite takes full effect, his debilitating fear of women, which causes him to fall into the ravine below. Though, despite that humiliating display, Bulma then proceeds to start thirsting over Yamcha, who is currently swearing vengeance to Goku for his now mangled and unattractive face, because in his eyes, he's no longer marriage material. The group then set down for the night in Oolong's mobile camper, where Goku can eat and Pansy can exposit information to make the plot move forward. Honestly, it's a little weird that they just immediately make peace with Oolong. At least in the manga and anime, there was some coercion involved between Bulma and Oolong via some diarrhea meds. But, hey, you do what you gotta do when your movie's only 51 minutes long. Anyway, Pansy reveals that she was making her way to an island in the south to ask for assistance from the god of martial arts himself, Muten Roshi. She tells them about Gurumez's mining exploits, which has destroyed the livelihood of the citizens as well as killed the environment. Now there's word of him searching for the 7 Dragon Balls from myth and legend, as if he didn't have enough already. You just gotta love greed, everybody. Bulma notes that they were already going to head south because that's in the general direction of the next ball, so they can at least take her on the way. Meanwhile, Yamcha eavesdrops on the conversation with Puar and hatches a plan of his own. They'll get to the Turtle Hermit first, get him to beat Goku's ass, then they'll take his Dragon Ball. Now the Forest Bandit has a clear goal: to collect all 7 balls and wish on Shen-Long to take away his anxiety around women. So the following day, at least I think it's the following day. Anyway, Goku and company arrive on Roshi's island, but the Turtle Hermit knew they were coming. Yamcha and Puar, of course, got there first and told Roshi that this boy was out to take his life for notoriety. Not knowing who to believe, the Turtle Hermit then summons the magical cloud Kinto-un to decide who's really lying. Only those pure of heart can ride atop the cloud, a feat that not even the old martial arts master can manage to pull off. Of course, once Goku climbs aboard and rides Kinto-un through the sky, it becomes clear who the liar is. Something worthy of noting, in the source material, Kinto-un was given as a reward to Goku for returning Roshi's friend Turtle to the ocean. Here, it's being used as a lie detector test. A lie detector test that Yamcha clearly fails. And once he realizes that his plan has fallen apart, he proceeds to get the fuck out of there. Now, with that little distraction being settled, it's time for Pansy to finally ask for Roshi's help. But before that, Bulma takes notice of the Dragon Ball around Roshi's neck. Immediately, she asks if she can have it, and sure, he's willing to part with it. For a price. He wants to cop a feel of her
Boobies!
I'll say this for those who have never read or watched Dragon Ball and somehow have come across this video. How that happened, I don't know, but let me go ahead and say this. Whenever Roshi attempts anything like this in the series, he's never rewarded for it, as we'll see in a minute. So like in Dragon Ball Chapter 15, Bulma manages to coerce Oolong into taking her shape in exchange for her panties later. So of course he does it, and goes a tad overboard. So once the deed is done and Bulma has the ball, immediately afterwards they're attacked by Bongo and Pasta, who come up rolling in a submarine, manned by an entire crew. They managed to get one of the 2 balls in Bulma's possession via some remote drones. The only reason they didn't get both was because Oolong unintentionally got in the way. Realizing that they only got one of the balls, the duo bring the sub to the surface to retrieve the last one in person. And when I mean in person, I mean blasting the island into oblivion and getting whatever's left. Of course, this just makes them a target for what comes next. Roshi is now extremely pissed off now that his home has been destroyed. So he bulks up and fires a full power Kamehameha in retaliation, which destroys the sub. However, Pasta and Bongo, seeing the blast coming, jettison at the last second, escaping with the 3-star ball. All the other crew members of the sub, they're dead. Vaporized. Roshi wasted them. So, after that quite shocking display, Goku is pumped and wants to learn that signature technique of the Turtle Hermit. However, Roshi scoffs at the notion because it took him at least 50 years to create and master the Kamehameha. But like in the original story, Goku is a prodigy and picks it up right away. Though naturally, its power output pales in comparison to Roshi's. So, about the original reason they came to the Hermit's Island. Well, Pansy asks Roshi for help, and he refuses. In his words, he's removed from worldly life and desires, and she has her newfound friends that can help her. You know, the ones she's known for less than 24 hours. Yeah, even Oolong isn't buying that crock of bullshit. So, they're basically on their own. Not sure I agree with Inoue's characterization of Roshi in this film, though admittingly in early Dragon Ball he wasn't exactly a model citizen at the point in the story, you know, early Dragon Ball being a gag manga. I honestly think it's just Inoue's way of keeping Roshi's overpowered ass out of the film's climax. Anyway, getting back to the story, I gotta say that, damn, today has really sucked for Pansy. She was shot at, her only hope refused her plea for help, and only one of the 3 friends she's made is really all that dependable. Of course, I'm talking about Goku. The other is a perverted cowardly pig and a self-absorbed teenage rich girl who wants to use the Eternal Dragon's almost limitless power to give her ass a boyfriend. Yeah, I'd have that defeated look in my eyes too. So, meanwhile, Pasta and Bongo inform Garumez that the final Dragon Ball is coming directly to them, and they set to prepare for the arrival of our protagonists. The following morning, Goku and the others arrive at Garumez's castle and are immediately fired upon by the military. Bongo confronts Goku directly via a small hovercraft, while Bulma and the others are shot down almost right away. Amidst the chaos, Yamcha and Puara manage to barge their way into the castle, likely making a play at the Dragon Balls themselves, but not without snagging some rich stones along the way. Somehow, Bulma, Pansy, and Oolong manage to get inside and unintentionally meet Yamcha and Puar, though this interaction gets busted up by Pasta, who immediately comes in guns blazing. But hey, just kidding, Yamcha's still alive. The rich stones in his clothes shielded his body from the bullets. Sure, Inoue, sure. So, Yamcha engages Pasta via hand-to-hand combat, and actually manages to get the upper hand. For a second, until he realizes she's a woman. So when that little bout falls apart, at this point it's time for the kids to hightail it as far away from this chick as humanly possible. But she doesn't make it all that easy, as she immediately thinks that the best thing to do in this situation is to just start throwing explosives in their direction. Gurumez must have a really good insurance policy for the castle, because naturally when one starts haphazardly throwing grenades, it sort of, I don't know, affects the structural integrity of whatever building you're inside of. Crazy concept, I know. Bulma's about to be crushed by some falling debris, but our boy Yamcha, without even a second thought, saves her life, winning him a face snuggle with our girl. Elsewhere, Goku manages to take out Bongo's hovercraft, sending him free-falling to the castle below, but the big guy's not going down without a fight, and he manages to take Goku down with him. The two briefly fight it out inside the chamber where they landed, however, Goku uses his Nuoibo to knock Bongo across the castle into the royal dining hall. Both parties have now made it to Gurumez's dining hall, where the king himself has had his ass planted this entire movie. Once he realizes that the final Dragon Ball is within his grasp, he finally manages to get up from his table and come get it himself. Goku immediately steps up to fight the monstrous king, even attempting his newly learned Kamehameha, but the mutant unfortunately absolutely tanks it. Once they realize that the other 6 Dragon Balls are inside of this thing, Bulma makes her one final gamble and throws her Dragon Ball down his throat. The Eternal Dragon is then summoned and a pillar of light comes bursting from Gurumez's mouth, destroying the castle and hopefully taking down this mutant, albeit in a rather nasty way to go. Something to note, when our heroes manage to land outside, an apple drops next to Pansy. Where it came from, I don't know, but hey, it's relevant to Inoue's climax here in a second. No, I'm not taking that out. Fuck you, that was fire. So now with the Eternal Dragon summoned, it's time for someone to make a wish. Both Bulma and Yamcha attempt to get their wish granted, however Pansy quickly interjects, asking Shen-Long to restore the land to its former glory. A simple task for the dragon deity. The greenery begins to return and the rich stones are seemingly removed from the soil, eliminating any incentive for someone to come in and plunder the nation's natural resources. After that, Shen-Long takes his leave and the Dragon Balls scatter across the planet, Goku watching his grandpa's ball fly away before his eyes. So Bulma and Yamcha of course are disappointed that their wishes weren't granted until they realize that what they wanted was in front of them all along. So yeah, all's well that ends well. And amongst the rubble, Gurumez is somehow still alive, and he's reverted back to his human form. You know what? I think the monster form was a bit of an improvement. And guess what? He's still hungry. So, taking pity on him, Pansy gives him that apple. And honestly, it's the tastiest thing he's had in a long time. Something that shocks even him. Pansy's dad chimes in, reminding us he still exists, and cements into the disgraced king how that simple apple he's enjoying was something he almost destroyed with his own greed. Goku returns Pasta her coin since, he has no use for it. Something that shocks the soldier who was more than willing to kill a bunch of kids for the acquisition of wealth. Goku summons Kinto-un, and he flies off in search of his grandpa's 4-star ball, remarking about how the world has so many interesting places and people. Pansy, seeing Goku leave without saying goodbye, shouts her thanks to the boy who helped liberate them, as he flies off to his next adventure. The Legend of Shen-Long is a fun retelling of the first arc of Dragon Ball. However, it is lacking in various areas. It's a 51-minute movie attempting to incorporate story elements from roughly 23 chapters of the manga, which roughly translates to 13 episodes of the anime, and condense it down. So of course, certain character interactions won't hit the same way they did in the source material, and in many ways if you really want to enjoy the film, you kinda already have to be familiar with the story and characters before watching the movie. Which is obviously why I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who has never watched or read any Dragon Ball content. It's something to consume after reading or watching the first 3 story arcs, as certain elements are heavily borrowed from at least 2 of them, that being the Boyhood arc and the Red Ribbon Army arc. Obviously, the technological aspects of Gurumez's army are where the Red Ribbon elements kind of pull from. So once you've reached Dragon Ball Episode 43, the episode that aired prior to the Toei Cartoon Festival, I'd say you're good to go to watch this movie. Another issue to some is how the story focus isn't truly on Goku and his friends, but on Pansy, who really in a lot of ways is the main protagonist of the story. The notion of a character out to liberate her people from a tyrant is a literary trope. However, given that this is this continuity's first adventure with Goku and company, it does take away a little bit of the source material's magical beginning. At least in my opinion. Finally, as far as the antagonists go, Gurumez isn't really much to write home about. His existence is literally an allegory for the never-ending suffering of one's insatiable greed. And when he does lose everything, that being his castle, his wealth, and his military, he assumingly comes to the conclusion that his greed took away his appreciation for the simplest of nature's pleasures, hence the scene with the apple. Though, let's be real, he deserves to rot in a dungeon for the rest of his days. And as far as Pasta and Bongo go, they serve as more active antagonists to our heroes, but in reality, they're just a more competent version of Mai and Shu. So when you compare Gurumez, Bongo, and Pasta to the Pilaf gang, you realize that there's no contest. Pilaf and co just have so much more character, chemistry, and presence than these movie villains do. But then again, that's most Dragon Ball movies. All in all, despite my nitpicks, this movie is a fun way to kill 51 minutes. But in my opinion, there's better Dragon Ball movies that come in the future. Like next time when we cover the second Dragon Ball movie, Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle. Lastly, before I go, I want to thank those awesome people over at the Dragon Ball fan site Kanzenshuu. They are one of, if not the most in-depth Dragon Ball information resources on the internet, entirely compiled from hardcore fans whose love goes all the way back to the mid to late 90s. And it was there where I pulled a lot of my info for this review, so check the description down below and give the website a look if you haven't already. But be prepared for possible information overload, because dear God is there a lot over there. So, if you all enjoyed this review and want to see more like it in the future, hit that like button as it does help in the YouTube algorithm, and of course subscribe and tap that bell icon to be notified when I drop another video in 500 years. Also, drop your thoughts down below about The Legend of Shen-Long. Is it one of your favorites? Is it incredibly mid? Is it ass? Hell, am I cringe? Go ahead, let it rip in the comment section below. See you guys next time. Oh, hey bro, I'm just your local undercover FBI agent, Simon's hit. Mind if I come in and take a look around?